You're listening to an Anderson Entertainment production.
This episode,
we'll be watching out for a FAB Fact.
There's something big and hairy on the loose in the Randomiser.
and we'll meet the man in the foam rubber mask in our feature. Oh, that's me.
Oh, so it is. That's all coming up in Pod 114.
Hooray! Of the Gerry Anderson podcast.
Let's get started. Let's go.
Spectrum is green.
The Gerry Anderson podcast with Jamie Anderson and Richard James.
Showing off now.
He is. He is showing off.
The feature's about me, and the introductory music is played by my son, who I produced.
Welcome to the Richard James podcast.
Yeah, with you, Richard James.
and that's it. No.
And supporting cast.
No, Jamie, it's not all about me. That was just a gentle reminder to our lovely listeners to send in their attempts at any Gerry Anderson theme tune with any instrument that they might happen to have lying around, and post it into us and we'll play it out. That's all. That's all it was. All right?
All right, fine.
Happy?
Well,
yeah.
I'll tell you what, Richard James.
Yeah,
I've
Anderson.
got something pretty special for you.
I think I could see it from here. Oh, not that. No.
Yes, well, as you may well know, I live on a farm in Wales.
Yes.
And we've got a number of chickens here.
Right.
And I have a very musically talented cockerel, would you believe?
I beg your pardon? Is this the beginning of a joke?
It is no joke, Richard, I can assure you. Okay. So here, performing exclusively for the very first time on the podcast, is my cockerel doing the theme from Stingray.
Stand by for action.
Stingray. Stingray. Stingray.
So, what do you think to that?
I mean, let's. I'm going. That's it. We'll stop now. We can't top that. That
we have
best thing
peaked.
ever. Oh yeah, we've ever had on the podcast. Chick Ray.
So,
okay, there you go. There you go,
Podsterons. Yes.
Beat that.
Well, not only do you have a musical talent to be able to play Gerry Anderson theme, but do you have an animal or a pet that can either do a Gerry Anderson impression, not of Dad, that would be a bit weird, but of a character, or sing a bit of a track from a Gerry Anderson show?
It's taken us 114 pods to get to this point.
Yep. Is that the bottom of the barrel I can feel there? I think it might be.
That's great. Oh, I love when I look forward to hearing those. That's brilliant. Very good. I like that. Now, we should just point out that we're not just here to hear pets sing Gerry Anderson themes, but we're here for all sorts of other Gerry Anderson related stuff as well. Over the next hour and a bit, we'll be heading on over to Chris Dale over there for these amazing Randomiser. We'll be hearing some news from the Gerry Anderson universe, also a fab fact or two from Jamie, and this week, rather than an interview, a very special item. Would you like to tell us more, Jamie?
About your special item?
Yeah.
I mean, it's about you, but yeah, all right, fine.
Go on, I want to hear it in your words.
Well, I don't know if you know this, listeners, but there's a well-known and highly respected Olivier-nominated actor called Richard Ninestein James. Richard is well known for being an author of multiple books, like the Bone of the Yard series and Space Precinct, Unmasked City. But the reason he wrote that was because, and you may not know this, he was actually in Space Precinct, the television series. Amazing. I know, it was a surprise to me as well. Now, Richard then went on to write a book about his experiences in said television series, which he was in, called Space Precinct Unmasked.
Oh,
and it's called that because in the television series Space Precinct, in which Richard James featured, he wore a mask. So there's the gag there. So not only is Richard James a famous actor, author, and Space Precinct featuree, but he is also a comedian. But today, he's performing for you 2 chapters from Space Precinct Unmasked, his book documenting his time on the television series Space Precinct.
Yes. All right, I'm sorry I asked now. There we are. I wish I'd done it myself. All right.
You wouldn't have had so much detail if you'd done it yourself, though. Come
true.
on.
Well, thank you very much. So all that coming up a little later on. And also, of course, we've been hearing from our Podsterons who've been emailing us in at podcast@gerryanderson.co.uk. They've been tweeting us on Twitter using the hashtag #GerryAndersonPodcast, tagging him, I'm Jamie Anderson, me, Richard N. James, and him just over there, just lazily lying back on the lounge sofa over there with his newspaper over his face, Chris Dalek.
Isn't that a chaise longue, actually, that he's on?
That's the word I was looking for. There you go. Yeah. And with the tassels around the bottom. It's very fetching. And also, our Facebook group, of course, has been very active this week, and we'll be popping over there to see what they've been getting up to as well.
Cannot wait. Now, we've wasted a hell of a lot of time here, Richard James. I think it's very important that we push on for a fab fact, and we better make it a short one.
Okay, go on then. Let's do that.
Now, time for this week's Fab Facts.
Right, no time for the usual tomfoolery. I've got a book of fab facts. I'm going to flip through it, which is going to say fab, and I'm going to read a very short fab fact. Let's hope it's short. If it isn't, we'll have to flick again and find another short one, but we haven't got time for that, so let's just flick now. Here we go.
Fab!
Oh, thank goodness for that. It is a short one, because we are so short of time, because we've faffed about so much in the intro.
Yeah, sorry about
that. Here's a fact from 1969.
Oh, yeah.
Which is perfect timing because, well, it's sort of not really, but UFO was first shown in 1970, so it's the 50th anniversary year, and we've just released the UFO 50th anniversary posters, so it is kind of perfect for that.
I see.
But when filming was completed on UFO, Ed Bishop, famous as Commander Ed Straker and also Captain Blue from Captain Scarlet, was rewarded for all of his hard work by being given Ed Straker's actual watch that the character wore on the series.
Nice.
And when he was given it, he turned it over and engraved on the back were the words, UFO 1969, with affection, Gerry, Sylvia, Reg. And he wore that watch every single day for the rest of his life.
Wowzers. That's
Isn't that
lovely.
Sweet.
Yes. Where is it now? Do we know?
I've got absolutely no idea, actually. No idea.
No.
But there's a couple of photos of it online, and it's just a lovely gesture. And I know how close Dad was with Ed. So there will have been a huge amount of sentiment and meaning behind that gift. And it's a bit like your Comlock, Richard, isn't it? Which is you took from the set of Space Precinct.
Yes,
and
that's right. Well,
what does it scrawled on the back? Richard, get lost.
Bring this back. It's not yours. Property of Pinewood Studios. Now, actually, there is a bit of a tie-in because aside from my multicom, Jamie, and my pistol, the gun, my blaster, and my shirt and my badge, which I also took on the last day of filming from Pinewood, in an episode called Deadline, I played another character called Pike, who was a Creon, and he had a watch that he wore in that episode, and I took that as well. So
where's that?
I have a watch. It broke and I threw it away a few years ago. Yeah, I know.
What?
A rather nice little watch. Yeah, I know. How silly. Should have kept it. Even if it had stopped working. Should have kept it.
Even a stopped watch tells the right time twice a day.
Twice a day. You're right. So there's something I have in common with Ed Bishop. Except I took mine illegally and his was presented to him with the best wishes of the producers.
Yes. And then you threw yours away rather than wearing it every day for the rest of your life.
That's true. There, yeah. Anyway.
But other than that, I mean, you're basically the same person.
Exactly right, yeah. You can tell by the haircuts.
Yeah, you both look great in a blonde wig. Right. I told you it was only a quick one, and that was a quick one.
It was.
Even though we've managed to ramble on and make it a bit longer.
Yeah, as usual.
But I think that is the end of this week's Watch Fact.
There we go. What a lovely story.
Perfection.
I like that. Yeah. Also, I'm going to open this out as well. Do you, at home, listeners, have any particular, not merchandise, but any particular props from any TV series, Gerry Anderson TV series? Have you got Commander Koenig's Lycra onesie? Or have you got Barry Morse's sideburns? I don't know. Do let us know if you have a treasured prop. Do let us know if you have a treasured prop or piece of memorabilia from any Gerry Anderson series. And we'd love to share that with our listeners. Talking of sharing things with our listeners, we have had a few emails, and I'd like to share these with you, sent in to podcast@gerryanderson.co.uk. For example, Simpsons Clips 24 answers a question we asked a few weeks ago about people named after characters or locations in the Gerry Anderson series. Simpsons Clips 24 says, you mentioned last week about your namesakes, and that reminded me of something I saw the other day. I was watching a cartoon from my childhood called The Secret Show. It's basically Mission Impossible meets Austin Powers, Danger Man, The Avengers, and Monty Python, when I noticed that one of the animators was called Richard James. I see there are a few of us about. That got me wondering, does Richard have a secret job we don't know about, or is it somebody else altogether? Well, Jamie, we've spoken about this, we can't say too much, but I actually have had a secret job that no one knows about. Haven't I, Jamie?
Yes,
Hey,
you have.
I think I gave a bit too much away last week, and I've had my wrists wrapped.
Oh, yes, of course.
Yeah. So I'll keep it to myself for now. But yes, thank you for that, Simpsons Clips 24. Dean Harrison says, chaps, though I don't have any family members named after Anderson characters, my youngest son, William Patrick Harrison, does have a double but entirely accidental sci-fi name connection. You see, William and Patrick just happen to be the first names of the two actors to play the Doctor in Doctor Who, and also the first names of the first two actors to play the lead in the first two Star Trek live-action series. That's the original series and Next Generation. I love to claim credit for this forward thinking, but in reality, he was named after my grandfather, William, and in honour of my mother, Patricia. As mentioned, says Dean in a previous email, William is a composer and loves the work of Barry Gray, but this week I introduced him to the Secret Service for the first time, which he confesses was not as mad as he expected to be, but most of all he absolutely loved the music. He also confessed that the musical he is currently working on has a direct Anderson inspiration in one of the songs. Not that I can say what this is just yet, says Dean. Cheers from Dean Harrison. Well, do let us know when you can, Dean. That sounds fascinating. And how nice to introduce your son to, of all things, the Secret Service.
I know. The only way is up, some might say,
well,
possibly.
True enough. Yeah. And finally, Adam Luff says, hi, Jamie and Richard. Hope you're having a good week. With a number of impressions coming your way, I'm joining in with my impression of Young Star. Podsterons on Facebook and Twitter will have already seen one of my Meme videos of a skit featuring Zelda's botched duplicates of Einstein and Hero. And he's posted it on his YouTube channel and on Twitter. But also he sent us the audio file, and he says not long after posting it, Robbie Stevens responded on Twitter with, I think I'm out of a job, which is pretty cool. Adam says, although voiceover work is fun and I'd love to do more, I'm not after his job really, haha. Finally, I'd like to thank the two of you as well as Chris Dale for the likes and retweets in the past, and I'm glad to see you've been enjoying the Memes. Take care, keep up the good work from Adam Luff.
Lovely work. I've definitely seen the Memes, and we've definitely I saw Robbie Stevens, Robbie's voice on Twitter, commenting about that.
Yes, very good. Isn't it nice that you can directly connect with people in your favourite shows these days? Didn't have that when I was a kid.
No.
Nice.
Well, you'd have to write them a letter, wouldn't you? And then they probably
absolutely. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Still do that now on Twitter.
Now you can be ignored in real time.
Block them. No, never. Yeah. So there we are. Do send in your emails to podcast@gerryanderson.co.uk and we'll do our best to read them out next time.
Thank you very much. Richard?
Yeah?
I feel like we're in need of some news. What do you think?
Ah, yes, desperate for it.
Then here we go with Gerry Anderson News. What is it, Richard?
News.
It's Gerry Anderson News. First up this week, Space 1999 fans, this is one for you.
Ah, great.
If there are any of these still available, that is. And I say that because the special edition of Volume 1 of Big Finish's new Space 1999 series, the next 3 episodes, which are coming out in February next year, well, the special limited edition that's only available from the Gerry Anderson store is available right now to pre-order. There are only 500 copies. Chances are most of those who bought the special edition of Breakaway have already ordered theirs, so if there are any left, then I urge you to go and grab them before they're all gone. It's the standard 3 CD story edition in the jewel case, but with a special edition slipcase, a special archive insert, as yet unannounced extra content, and a downloadable special feature which is exclusive to the Gerry Anderson store and to that release. So go and grab those while they're still around. If you prefer your space adventures more retro, then the Firewall XL5 badge range is out now. There's t-shirts and mugs and all that sort of stuff. Just the iconic XL5 sort of oval logo, which looks really smart.
Interesting.
As we know from Richard, as he has probably reminded us several times by now, Space Precinct Unmasked is coming to audio, and you will be hearing a couple of chapters very shortly in place of our usual interview slot. You can enjoy that. If you are an Anderson Insider, I think at Lieutenant or Special Agent level, you will be getting Space Precinct Unmasked for free with your monthly membership. If you are interested in joining Insiders, go to patreon.com/Anderson Insiders. That's patreon.com/Anderson Insiders, and you can join there from as little as £1 a month. Over on the YouTube channel, you might like to know that there's another free episode of New Captain Scarlet available. At the time of recording this, I'm not sure which one it is, but pop along to youtube.com/Gerry Anderson TV and you can get another full, free, high-definition episode of New Captain Scarlet. There's also one of Chris Dale's recent creations, UFO The Alien Files, which has proved very popular, particularly amongst conspiracy theorists, it seems. Anyway, that's it, I think. I tried to keep it short and sweet. That is the end of this week's Gerry Anderson News.
That was the news. That was the news.
Well, there's another good one for you, Podsterons. I hope you found something in there to tickle your fancy. Richard certainly did.
Yes. Yeah, oh, yes, exactly. It doesn't take much, though, to be honest, does it? Now, talking of tickling one's fancy...
Oh, yes.
We have heard from Anthony, who sent in an email, funny enough, to podcast@gerryanderson.co.uk, saying, Dear Richard and Jamie, I was watching the independent film Chicken yesterday, obtained in a recent network sale, and was delightfully surprised to find that you, brackets, Jamie, directed the behind-the-scenes special. Do you have any memories working on this? Tell us, Jamie.
Can't remember a thing. No, Chicken is a fantastic independent film directed by Joe Stevenson, who is a great young director. I say young director. I mean, he's young compared to Scorsese and you, Richard. Yes.
Right.
But yeah, very talented, nice chap. And I spotted it one evening on the Channel 4 or Film 4 run through, and it was absolutely fantastic. Really top-notch performance from the lead, Scott Chambers. It's really, really well worth a watch. Just look up Joe on Twitter, Joe Stevenson, or Chicken. I think it's Chicken Film. Make sure you watch it. It's really, really good. So I told a few people about it, including Network Distributing, and Tim Beddoes at Network watched it and also loved it, got the distribution rights, and then asked me if I'd make the extra special feature for it. So I got the cast together in London,
when you could.
Waterloo, had them all meet me in a cafe, and then took them to a secret location which none of them knew about, which was Waterloo City Farm. So that they were with in sort of nature in an urban environment and with the chickens and various things, and did that there. So yes, that very non-Anderson thing, but really worth a watch. Quite emotional, quite hard-hitting. So don't watch it if you're feeling fragile, but do watch it.
Yeah, great. Oh, okay. Oh, well, thank you, Anthony, for that. He also says, congratulations, Richard, on the new paperback releases of The Bowman of the Art books. That's nice. And he says, was Space Precinct ever translated into different languages? Secret Service probably wasn't translated overseas, as unwinnees would just cause migraines. And then you asked about the least popular Gerry Anderson series, says Anthony. Well, Torchy is nightmare-inducing, as are the string singlets, that's difficult to say, in UFO. Okay, fair enough. Was Space Precinct ever translated? Do you know, I have no idea. It was certainly sold to various different territories over the world. Would it be overdubbed, translated? Would it have had subtitles? I don't know, Jamie. Any idea?
I suspect it would have been dubbed. I don't know what territories it was taken out to. I'm sure I've seen a German version, and I'd be fairly certain there was a Japanese version as well, but I don't know for sure. Something to look into, actually. So thanks for prompting us, Anthony.
There you go. Yeah, we'll do that. And very quickly on Twitter, Phil Joyce says, as Tina Turner once sang, you're all simply the best. This is after your lovely tweet over the weekend, a couple of weekends ago, Jamie, praising the whole of the team behind Gerry Anderson, the YouTube channels and the website design and the Twitter and Facebook pages and the Podsterons and the podcast and all that. And Phil Joyce says, always felt valued when dealing with the Gerry Anderson store and team. Outstanding website, shop and podcast. So thank you.
Oh,
that's very nice.
Phil.
Yeah, thanks, Phil. Captain Kangaroo says the best part of waking up on Monday is knowing I have a new pod waiting for me to enjoy. And Becca, finally for now, says, big virtual hugs, handshakes and rounds of applause to you all. Thank you so much for working so hard to provide quality content, outstanding service, and for putting up with us crazy Podsterons too. Well, Becca, it's our pleasure. Thank you very much. How lovely.
Those are our raisons d'etre.
Exactly right. Yeah.
Lovely. What a nice set of tweets.
Nice.
Richard, I suspect there's going to be even more nice tweets after this week's feature.
Oh, right. Yeah. Of course there will be.
Tweets of relief when we get to Pod 115 and return to the usual format. No, I'm obviously...
no, you're quite right.
Obviously joking. No, Richard, tell us all about this week's feature, and then I suppose you should just start doing it.
Yeah, okay. Well, 5 years ago, to mark the 20th anniversary of Space Precinct, I wrote a book, Space Precinct Unmasked, detailing my time spent at Pinewood Studios playing the part of Officer Orin in the series. There's a little bit of behind-the-scenes stuff, what was going on with other cast members, what was happening with the crew, what happened with the show as it continued through its 24 episodes. Were there any fallings out? Were there any romances? Well, you'll have to buy the book to find out, and it is going to be available as an audiobook very shortly. And to mark that, I thought it might be rather nice if I were to play for you now a couple of chapters. Would you like to hear it?
Oh, yes, please. I mean, SPA.
Early days. March the 11th might be a fairly innocuous day in most people's diaries, but that was the day I was offered the role of Officer Orin in Gerry Anderson's Space Police. My first response was to phone the bank. Surely, as I was on the verge of playing a part in a multi-million-dollar TV series, they'd be happy to release some much-needed funds to see me through until filming started. Of course they weren't. In hindsight, I can quite understand why they didn't believe my story. Would you? And so I was left to struggle through the remaining weeks until filming started, with little more to my name than the clothes I stood up in. There were moments of excitement, of course. I very quickly heard from Simone Bendix, a drama school contemporary, that she was in the running to play Officer Castle in the series. After an initial fit of pique, this was my show after all. I was only too happy to think of there being a familiar and rather beautiful face around. With a faint Danish accent, was this an example of the producers trying to reach for an international feel for the show? As I worked my final days at the box office call centre, I took a series of calls from my agent, detailing how, as the series was being sold to more and more territories, the money on offer was going up and up. I think I received 3 such calls over a couple of weeks, and very welcome they were too. All this before a single frame had been shot. It's a testament to the universal appeal of the Gerry Anderson brand that so many broadcasters were keen to snap the series up. I don't remember a costume fitting, although there almost certainly would have been one. I do remember a phone call from the wardrobe department which made me laugh. As I answered the phone to Barbara from Space Police, I felt like I was about to be issued with an intergalactic parking ticket. With Simone now confirmed to play Officer Castle, my first day on set was creeping ever closer. Principal photography was due to start in May 1994, a full 2 months after my initial audition, but the excitement was building. The greatest milestone before work began proper came with the opportunity to go back to Pinewood to try on the mask that I'd be wearing. At last, I got to grips with my transport arrangements and duly found myself sitting on the Metropolitan line to Uxbridge, followed by a quick taxi journey to the very front door of L&M Block. I think this was the first time I met more of the cast, specifically those who were to play the regular aliens. Jerome Willis was to play Captain Podley and seemed amiable enough. Further research revealed that he had played a memorable role in an episode of Doctor Who with John Pertwee, so, of course, he immediately rose higher in my estimation. Mary Woodvine was cast as Took, a Tarn police officer. My main memory of our first meeting is one of a lively soul with plaited hair that seemingly reached to the floor. Tom Watt was to play my partner, the newly redesigned Officer Beazle. I knew Tom by sight, as did half the country it seemed, from his appearances as Lofty Holloway in EastEnders. Finally, Ken Drury was cast to play the Tarn desk sergeant, Fredo. He was a seasoned actor with a Scottish burr. Would he be using that for his character, I wondered? We were each assigned a dressing room and asked to change into our costumes. Black trousers and riding boots, white T-shirt, and a blue long-sleeved police shirt with a darker stripe down the centre. Looking myself up and down in the full-length mirror by the door, I fancied I cut quite a dash. My illusions were soon dashed in the make-up room. Orin was a peculiar creature to look at. The general look was softer than the image of Beazle I'd been shown at my audition. Orin had a large head of bristly hair, wide-spaced eyes, and smooth, mottled skin. How on earth was I to put the thing on? The answer, it seemed, was with help. Richard Gregory was joined in the make-up room by assistants Lindsay Harris and Nigel Trevesi. We aliens were duly seated in a row, and the process was begun. As so many of us would be playing aliens in the series, the masks had been designed to be fitted relatively quickly. First of all, a balaclava-like sleeve was pulled over our head. This was made of cotton, but had a prosthetic neckpiece attached at the bottom which spread a little over our chests and shoulders. Once this was on, our lower face, jaw, and lips were painted with a rather distinctive-smelling medical-grade adhesive called Prosaid, sticky and cold to the touch. Our chin pieces were then applied to cover the whole of the lower part of our face. The lips were glued to our own, which, although not an entirely pleasant experience, would mean our alien mouths would be as malleable and expressive as our own. A thin electric cable was passed up through the balaclava and out through a hole in the top. At its lower end, it was attached to a battery pack. This cable was then attached to the top half of the mask, which comprised the eyes, and the whole thing was lowered into place. The whole process took perhaps 50 minutes, which, believe you me, is speedy work indeed. As the series progressed, of course, this preparation time was reduced significantly as we all became familiar with the process. Making use of what limited vision I had, I peered through the eye holes situated just below Orin's eyes at the creature in the mirror before me. The effect was startling. It seemed quite a friendly face, certainly not as fierce as I had feared, and, once the motors were switched on, surprisingly mobile. Tiny servo motors were implanted into the mask at strategic points to give it the appearance of life, most notably, of course, in the eyes. These were able to move the eyes left and right, up and down. Additional motors around the eyebrows allowed the creatures to frown or affect an expression of surprise. I moved my head from side to side, trying to get a better view as the motors were engaged. Most surprising was the noise. Inside the mask, the sound coming from those tiny motors was amplified, making normal conversation very difficult. Aside from a general background hum that told us when the motors were on, there was a small mechanical whizzing sound each time they were engaged. Every blink or frown was accompanied by the whirring of tiny servos. The mask lowered into position, it was secured into place with poppers on each side of the face. Then it was time for the most difficult thing of all: walking. With little or no peripheral vision, this was more challenging than it sounds. One by one, we were led down the stairs to Gerry's office, like frail old men being led by a carer. The stairs were especially difficult to negotiate without the benefit of knowing just where we were putting our feet. It brought us up short to realize just how much practice we would need before we could walk with confidence, or at least with the appearance of confidence. It was strange meeting Gerry for the first time since my audition, as this time there was an inch of latex between us. He gave me a series of expressions to approximate, and together with my operator we tried our best to oblige. Surprise, anger, puzzlement. Given the circumstances, this last one was the easiest to achieve. There's something strange about being in a mask. It gives one the opportunity to observe without being observed, like bird-watchers in a hide spying on their quarry. I took the opportunity to scrutinize the man in front of me. Gerry Anderson, the legend. He stood tall and bird-like in a pair of jeans and a denim-coloured shirt. Aside from his casual wardrobe, with his bald head and sharp eyes, he looked for all the world like a bank manager. Or at least, a bank manager the way the producers of a sitcom or film might see them. The man who had invented a whole new way of making television and had entertained generations looked, well, ordinary. The makeup removed, a much quicker procedure involving the gentle application of solvent, it was back into the dressing rooms to get changed back into our civvies. There I had the opportunity to chat with Jerome Willis. With his great actor's voice and distinctive features, he could have made for an imposing figure if it wasn't for his gentle nature. Our conversation soon turned to the finer points of our contracts. "What about the money?" he asked. "I know," I replied, my eyebrows raised with the sheer wonderment of it all. Imagine the things I could do. I was going to furnish my flat, that was for sure, maybe even move to another flat. I was about to infuse further when Jerome shook his head sadly. "Isn't it dreadful?" he said. I was relieved I didn't feel too uncomfortable in the mask after all, and felt I could spend a year in it happily enough, but for one of our number, things were a little different. Ken Drury was to play Sergeant Fredo, but this particular day, his first official day on the job as it were, was also to be his last. His mask in place, he was led to the top of the stairs to be helped down to Gerry's office, when something snapped. I wouldn't presume to call it a panic attack, but he was clearly not comfortable in the mask. More than that, he had to get out of it. Immediately. I could cope relatively easily with the discomfort, but it was clear that the prospect of spending a year in such a claustrophobic environment was one that filled him with dread. He was led back to the dressing room, where he was helped out of his tarn head, and a dreadful reality hit home. He was going to have to turn the job down. This is a tough call for any actor in any job, but to turn down a year's work must have been particularly painful. But he simply could not wear the mask. With principal photography to begin in a matter of days, he was very quickly replaced by another actor, David Quilter. David recalls, "My career had become quite scrappy and I was beginning to find it hard to make ends meet. I'd been invited to the birthday party of a very close friend and all-round clever dick, actor, writer, TV director, singer and excellent cook, Lou Wakefield. At the party, I bumped into a casting director who I knew quite well, Rebecca Howard. I said to her that things were not going well and asked her to find me something. She said that the only thing she was working on was this thing called Space Police, and if I fancied a day in a mask at Pinewood, she'd see what she could do. I said yes, absolutely, I'd be there, and thought no more about it. That was Saturday night. First thing on Monday morning, 11 a.m., which is first thing for thesps, I got a call from my agent, saying I'd been offered Space Police. Oh, I said, a day in a mask at Pinewood, eh? No, 40 weeks over a year. When I came round, I said calmly, OK then, and that was that. I had to go to Pinewood to have a full headcast made, and then to meet Gerry Anderson. He didn't look overly enthusiastic, but told me that I'd been highly recommended by Rebecca and the first episode director, Colin Buxey, with whom I'd worked on numerous occasions. He, incidentally, had been married to the original Doctor Who producer, Verity Lambert. Ken Drury, by the way, is still enjoying a successful career, appearing in such films and TV shows as 4 Weddings and a Funeral, Law and Order, and 24. Before the day was over, a quick tour of the stages was in order. We were shown around the huge station house set, where Officer Orrin was to spend much of his time, and, in the opposite studio, Lieutenant Brogan's rather plush apartment. It was all beginning to feel very real. I don't remember much about the read-through, but I know we had a read-through, maybe a week or two later. We read through the first episode, Double Duty, written by David Caron and J. Larry Carroll. I'm guessing it was at Pinewood, and I certainly remember Gerry being in attendance. Searching for a familiar face, I sat next to my old drama school friend, Simone Bendix. She remembers her early feelings about the series. I swore I would never perform in a pantomime or anything science fiction, 2 genres I didn't have a clue about. Naturally, my first 2 jobs involved the exact 2 things I'd sworn I would never do. So getting over and understanding the whole pantomime concept, I embarked on the next big no-no, science fiction. I grew up thinking I could see fairies if I looked hard enough and really believed in them. So perhaps the 2 worlds weren't that far removed from each other after all. But imagining spaceships and the future seemed just too unromantic to me. I had little time to catch up on unseen Star Trek, Star Wars or Doctor Who, so decided I would approach it my way, naively believing it was possible to make it all realistic. I had doubts, but also a great agent who advised me to do it. To work on something for a whole year, to not have to worry about auditions or other matters, to get a more or less normal routine, even if it happened to be in space, was fun, and a different challenge than the one I had imagined. And luckily, I have no regrets. On the contrary. And I remember being introduced to Ted Shackelford. Coming from a family with 2 elder sisters, I recognised Ted at once as Gary Ewing from the American TV series Knots Landing, the spin-off series to Dallas. Growing up in my house, both shows were required viewing. It was at this read-through that I first heard Jerome Willis giving his Irish accent as Podley. It struck me immediately as a strange choice, but the right one. Even though there was no reason at all why Podley, a Creon from the planet Danae, should speak with an Irish brogue, it seemed to suit the character perfectly. Suddenly, the range of accents I'd been asked to use at my audition made more sense. I've learnt since then that often the bravest choices are the best, and playing safe often makes for a mediocre performance. Jerome Willis evidently never played safe. I'm guessing Colin Buxey was there, as he was to direct our first episode, and I suppose other directors might have been in attendance too. I was amazed to learn that John Glenn, director of many a Bond film, would be joining us. I could practically quote the whole of Licence to Kill, a film I must have seen over a dozen times. When I eventually confessed this to John, however, he didn't take me entirely seriously. "Are you taking the piss?" he asked. And so, contracts agreed, costumes adjusted, and masks fitted, we were ready to embark on the greatest adventure of all. Into the unknown. The episodes. Episode 1. Double Duty, written by J. Larry Carroll and David Bennett Caron. A drug war is raging in Demeter City, and a professional assassin is taking out the competition. The sole survivor of an attack on drug baron Oturi Nissim is a pretty alien girl, Alicia Amias, who is taken into protective custody. Suddenly, the killer is loose in the Space Precinct house, and Orin is its first victim. It's just a shame it all got off to such an ignominious start. My first day's work as an officer in Precinct 88 was filming the scene in Double Duty, set in the robot workshop, the same scene I'd read at my initial audition. I had shared the morning journey into work with Tom Watt. As he was also living in North London at the time, it was a quick walk for me to join him at his flat, and he was kind enough to drive me in. I remember him stopping at a zebra crossing to let a pedestrian cross the road, only for him to be greeted with the shout, "Oi! Lofty!" Part of the territory, I suppose, when your face is being beamed into over 10 million homes twice a week. There would be no such problem with space police, of course, a fact that I began to sense came as something of a relief to him after so many years in the public eye. The remainder of the journey passed without incident, except for the two of us trying to come up with the lyrics to our own version of a Space Police theme tune. Space Police, we can do what we please 'cause we're the Space Police. Sure, we'd have to work on it. Once at Pinewood, it was straight into costume and makeup and onto set for our first scene. The scenes within episodes of a TV series are often shot out of order, so as to make the best use of the sets available. And so, we were to film a scene that comes roughly halfway through the story. Orin and Beazle have been sent in pursuit of a dealer in black crystal, a new drug wreaking havoc in Demeter City. As they report back to Brogan from the scene, the camera pans down to show a pizza in a delivery carton, the mode of delivery for the drug, crawling with multicoloured maggots. As we were preparing for the scene, the battery pack for Orin's eyes was slipped into the back pocket of my trousers. The remote control unit was switched on, and I heard the whirring of the tiny motors powering Orin's eyes. This being quite a dark set, I was led into position by one of the operators, and everything was set for a rehearsal. As time went by, we learned that the head tops needn't be fully fastened until the very last minute. But in those early days, we were fully masked up as we stepped onto the studio floor. In position for our first rehearsal for the camera, I suddenly felt a sharp, scorching pain in my right buttock. Feeling down with my gloved hand, we wore blotchy alien hands pulled over our own, I pressed my trouser pocket, only to feel the pain increase. Trying to stay as calm as I could, but aware that no one else had realized what was going on, I said the first words I ever said on set for an episode of Space Police. My arse. My arse is on fire. The reaction was immediate. It was clear now that the battery pack had shorted out and caught fire in my pocket. Several pairs of hands clawed at my bum, each of them desperately trying to release the button that held the pocket closed. Water was thrown and material was ripped in an effort to both douse the fire and release the battery pack. I'm not pretending for a moment that there was any danger to life, but I did bear 2 small scars on my right buttock for months afterwards, and the heat from the little fire was enough to melt the trouser material onto my skin. Following this incident, care was taken to place the batteries in a little leather pouch. At least our arses would all be a little safer from now on. There was a foyer area at the front of the building, a large stairwell that contained huge leather sofas. Some of the cast would often congregate there between scenes, and it very quickly became our little common area. It was here that, during my first 2 or 3 days on the show, I met Robert Thurtle. I'd seen Rob listed as a mime artist on the call sheets, and was keen to hear exactly what that meant. Turned out, Rob knew more about the series than I did, and was happy to fill me in on the details. 10 years previously, he told me, a pilot episode of Space Police had been filmed with Shane Rimmer. Anderson fans will know him as the voice of Scott Tracy in Thunderbirds, as Lieutenant Brogan. The story and premise were much the same, but the aliens were of a different design, and the overall tone rather more jokey. When that pilot had failed to raise the required interest and funds to make the series, it had been put on the back burner. Gerry Anderson, however, was never a man to let a good idea go, and so, some years later, a short trailer was compiled, using old and new footage to take to the various trade festivals around the world and to show to potential investors. Rob had been brought on board at this stage to play Beazle. So, his was the face I'd seen in the photograph at my audition, and he seemed just as excited as I was. Rob remembers. I still think back to the pure joy of arriving at Pinewood Studios each day at 6:30, driving past all the sound stages, technical facilities, and tumble-down old sheds, and thinking of all the great films and film stars that had come through that place. And somehow it seemed so English, so utterly non-Hollywood, just a slightly scruffy industrial estate where films are made. Although every now and then Hollywood came to visit, and I seem to remember hearing a huge noise one day and being told that Sylvester Stallone was landing on the backlot in a Harrier jump jet. Rob was joined by Andrew Dawson, who also appeared as a proto-Tarn in the trailer. Andy was known to Gerry previous to this due to his devising a 2-man stage show, Thunderbirds FAB, which had received Gerry's blessing before touring the world and playing London's West End. Because of this connection, the stage show consisted of very little set and no props. All these were created through the medium of mime. Rob and Andy were known throughout the production as mime artists. This is a little disingenuous, however, as they were, quite simply, actors, and usually the busiest of all of us. It was their job to play the alien of the week, whether that be a Melozoid business executive, Rob as Loister in the episode Protect and Survive, or a Creon Pyrist priest, Andy as Tendel Kaliki in the episodes The Fire Within Parts 1 and 2. Actors or mime artists, it appeared I owed a great deal to Rob and Andy. Perhaps without their fine performances in the Space Police trailer, the series might never have made it to production. Any TV series takes a while to find its feet and decide what sort of show it's going to be. I'm afraid my instinct is, if in doubt, to play the comedy in every scene, but it was this very instinct that quickly got me into trouble. Tom and I had a scene in Podley's office. Podley is on the trail of a pizza delivery bike, driven by no less an actor than Idris Elba in one of his earliest TV appearances, and suspected of being the delivery vehicle for the drug Black Crystal. As Orin and Beazle are instructed to put an APB out on that bike, Tom and I had rehearsed a little bit of comedy action as we turned opposite ways and bumped into each other. We then, in pure Laurel and Hardy fashion, struggled to get through the door at the same time, neither of us wanting to give ground to the other as we endeavoured to get through first. The scene in the can, the camera crew moved downstairs to the main floor of the station house to continue with the day's schedule, no mean feat in itself, while Tom and I retired to our dressing rooms. I think it may even have been on the same day that a reshoot was ordered. I can only imagine the order came from Gerry himself, as, the footage having been viewed, it was decided that Orin and Beazle's behaviour was just too comedic. The scene was duly reshot, with Tom and I simply exiting hurriedly from Podley's office. I freely confess that, inside our police uniforms, we both had our tails firmly between our legs. I'm absolutely certain Gerry made the right call. After all, if it wasn't his call to make, then whose was it? But it's ironic that, having received a slap on the wrist for overplaying the comedy in the first episode, I would, not many weeks later, be wrestling with a giant chimp that Orin and his new partner Romek had discovered hiding in a dumpster. 2 other moments from filming this first episode spring vividly to mind. The first was filming late into the night on the scene where Orin is attacked by the shape-shifting creature. Suddenly, I was alone with the crew, the centre of their attention until 10 p.m. It's a quick scene on film, but took several hours to get right. The second vivid memory is of getting our first glimpse of the model effects Steve Begg was preparing for the series over at his workshop and studios in Shepperton. We crowded round a monitor in the corner of the set to see the sequence, also used in the titles, where the giant alien ship turns away from the station house and blasts off into space. Pretty impressive stuff, we thought. To be fair, many of Steve's effects have stood the test of time well. His space vistas and model effects are sometimes beautifully realised. For trivia lovers, these early episodes are the only ones to feature the heavy interior doors of the station, sliding up and down. As all the doors were operated by stagehands using nothing more sophisticated than ropes and pulleys, it was very quickly decided that perhaps the safest way for them to open would be to slide to the side. Prop doors they might have been, but they'd still be heavy enough to do some serious damage if they fell on someone's head. Despite all these precautions, there was one injury to a member of the main cast during the filming of Episode 1. As Lieutenant Brogan blasted his way out of the pizza kitchen about 2/3 of the way through the episode, a shard of wood lodged itself in his face, resulting in a small but painful gash to Ted's cheek. As he was rushed away to be treated at a local hospital, the schedule was rejigged to accommodate his temporary absence from duty. The end result was, I should imagine, much scrutinising of insurance documents, and Ted having to wear a plaster on his cheek for much of the next episode. The same scene was also particularly uncomfortable for a certain Creon hoodlum. Rob Thurtle explains. Andy and I, as a pair of crooks, had to lie dead on the floor, while tomato ketchup was dribbled on our latex faces. As the camera started to roll, the ketchup stage blood started to drip through the mesh in the mask and straight into my real eyes. It really stung, but, professional to the end, I remained silent and dead until the director cut the shot. Now there's dedication to the cause. Despite all the problems, there are some lovely performances in this opening episode. I enjoyed the wonderfully named Mattilock Gibbs as the interstellar bag lady with a secret, a storyline that I felt wouldn't look out of place in any episode of Star Trek. It's usual for any TV series to have a slightly wobbly start. On a show the size of Space Police, I would even say it's to be expected. I felt Double Duty was the episode where we made all our mistakes. Visual effects director Steve Begg admits to the pizza delivery bike sequences not being the best examples of his work. It's a remarkable fact that, even after what might be considered a 10-year lead-in, the actual start of the series still took some departments by surprise. In the early episodes at least, it's clear they're running to keep up. Double Duty's tone is very uneven and sometimes rather gruesome. Nissim's bloodied hand as he crashes onto Brogan's windscreen and the scenes where the creature attacks are quite at odds with those where we meet the Brogans at home, complete with their not entirely convincing animatronic pet, Zill. It's a charge that's levelled at the series generally, that it wasn't quite sure who it was aiming at. Seemingly too adult for children, and yet too childish for adults. Were we destined to fall perpetually between two stools, never finding our audience? Well, on the strength of this first episode, possibly. And, regrettably, on the strength of this first episode, director Colin Buxey was given his marching orders. There.
Cool. Oh, I want it. What happens next?
What a trip down memory lane that was.
Yeah.
It's funny, isn't it? The strange thing is, of course, it seems like yesterday. I think I said this when we released Demeter City a few weeks ago. Recording that and reading that, it was the same as Space Precinct Unmasked. Everything time just sort of concertinas, and it feels like you're talking about stuff that happened last week. It's really odd. It's
great, but you know what? There's something really nice about it as well, and this is not me, blowing smoke up your...
Ooga!
Exactly. No, this is just... there's a lot of shows out there that I've got a lot of behind the scenes information out there, a lot of behind the scenes books,
Yeah.
stories that are told again and again. But to hear these really personal, in-depth things about a show which is much less well documented. And in fact, really the only behind the scenes sort of stuff we've seen was kind of Saturday morning telly back in the 90s. And then Space Precinct Legacy, the documentary, which really did err on the side of negative with not a lot of balance.
Yeah.
To now have Unmasked and brought to life by somebody who, I don't know if you know this, Podsterons, was actually in the series itself.
Yeah, they won't know that because I don't like to talk about it, you see.
You never mentioned it.
No.
But I think that's extra special. So it's got its own extra special fascination. So I'm looking forward to hearing the rest of it. I'm sure you are too, Podsterons.
Lovely. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Richard James. Next week it's back to standard format with another interview, but I can't possibly tell you who it is yet.
Right. Okay.
But next week you'll know.
Well, I hope so.
Me too.
Well, we'd know by now because it would have been played out.
Oh, I see. Yeah, of course.
So we would know.
Yeah, we will know, but we can't say yet.
No.
Do you have any other messages from anyone around the Podsteron universe, or would you like us to go in to see Chris Dale? Or you do?
I do, of course. Over on the Facebook group, facebook.com/groups/Podsterons, people have been very busy uploading their favourite pictures and snapshots from their favourite episodes. They've been holding quizzes and they've been holding watches of various episodes from various series too. And Duncan Wilson has posted that he just bought the Space 1999 Series 2. I love Series 1, which I have, but sometimes you just need some top cheesy sci-fi goodness, says Duncan. And that's why we're all here, really, isn't it? Ashley Bell says to Richard James and Jamie Anderson, I had a lockdown dream one night. We were talking about strange dreams just a few weeks ago. I was chased by a UFO in Kent outside London, says Ashley. I ran down this road, turned right and saw a block of flats. Then I remembered, if I see a UFO, go to see this man, Paul Foster. I took a look at a note that a spy had given me and it said, Paul Foster, flat number 9. Oh, there. Sounds like the beginning of a nice piece of fan fiction there, doesn't it?
It does.
I like that. Yeah. Now, Stephen Trekkie Godfrey, you'd think might be in slightly the wrong place, but he even posted in our Facebook group that he was watching Casualty on Drama TV and David Graham guest starred, which is always nice to see.
Good old David Graham, bless him.
Yep. Then Louise Everson, who's our new admin over on the group there, says, what's your favourite podcast to date, Podsterons, and why? And she had lots of responses. For example, Paul G said, Pods 46 to 48, the Mary Anderson interviews were just wonderful. Fascinating insight into the ups and downs of production, funding, and Gerry's life.
Bless Mummy A.
Yep. Robin Warner said, I've not heard many of the earlier ones, but I really enjoyed the interviews with David Tremont from Weta and David Parker from the European Space Agency.
All the Davids.
Yes. Rebecca Andrews said there are too many, she says. Sophie Aldred, Barry Gray, Ray Earl, Mary Turner, Shane Rimmer, Sophia Miles, and Phil Platt, Mummy A, so many. And finally, Steve Bushell says, all but Pod 1, as there was no Chris Dale.
Oh.
Yes. That's right. Bit of an outlier there.
Yeah, well, it was only an intro, but don't worry. We've upped the percentage as far as we can. We're at 99.9%.
Yes, and that will only increase as we carry on, unless there's some unforeseen.
Careful! What are you wishing on him?
I'm just saying. I don't know.
Me.
No, I'm not wishing anything on him. Sorry.
Should we hand over to Chris Dale? Now
Is he all right?
Try to defame him.
Yeah. Chris?
Yeah? Chris, are you there?
I think he's all right.
Yeah. Come on, Chris.
We wish you no harm, Marina. Do you like my craft? Yes, it is beautiful, isn't it? A beautiful craft for a handsome owner.
Well, I'm sure she agrees with at least one of those sentiments, Elhudad. I must say, though, it was very kind of you to invite us both along on a cruise like this.
I am a good man. That is my trouble.
Yes. Pity you had to kidnap Marina and the Randomiser to do it, but still, worth it for this lovely food.
Yes.
I suppose that means that in return for your hospitality, you'll be wanting to press the button on the Randomiser today. Well, now, admittedly, it's still a rather small club of people who've gotten to do that, but...
I demand membership at once!
Oh, of course, by all means.
I'm glad you agree.
It's just the big red button right there.
Yes, Lizardhead, I know that. Why unctuous intelligence as Marina?
Well, you know how it is. She's the brains of the outfit and I'm the... Oh, the printout, thank goodness. Right, let's see what we have today.
Do not fear, big and small toe.
Oh, I'm not. Okay, so today we're going to be watching an episode of Terrorhawks.
I don't know how you have got along without me.
And curiously enough, you have given us an episode featuring a character who shares many of the same noble qualities as your good self.
What does this mean?
Yes, he's large, ugly, hairy, probably has bad breath.
What?
You don't snore, do you?
He snores like a pig. Shut up, Scorpion. I think I know who it was.
That's right, it's the Sporilla. So it's back to Terrorhawks with the Sporilla. This is the, I think the 7th episode in production order, although I can never keep track of the Terrorhawks production order with having gold near the start, and I think there's also, I think Expect the Unexpected Parts 1 and 2 are both numbered episode 1 in production order or something strange like that. Anyway, we're not here to talk about them, we're here to talk about the Sporilla.
That thing away from me.
Sit. Good boy.
Sistar and Youngstar in the cryogenic store.
See me?
She said she has something to
Sistar's got her little pet cube, Pluto, which was quite sweet. I think it's
I have released one of our friends from cryogenic slumber.
Oh, goody. Yeah, it's. I think Sistar was probably one of the hardest characters to write for in this show, because she seems.
What is it?
You know, she barely ever leaves Mars.
Oh.
She rarely has any direct influence on events. And in fact, the only time she ever does have any sort of genuine impact on the series is when she produces another character to do all that stuff instead.
You don't know what you've done. It will tear us all to pieces.
Yep, Zelda's unleashed the Sporilla. A Sporilla. I was never quite sure if it was the same one over and over again, or... Oh. Yeah, nearly killed Youngstar. She stopped him just in time.
I don't understand.
With this device.
And Youngstar in this episode seems to be in his very early sort of... he's not the scheme... He's not the drooling imbecile of later episodes that we all know and love. He's the one who... The Youngstar who can make plans. In this episode, he was just... he had his hand on his chin there. He was thinking.
Gained control over ferocity and power.
A novelty for Youngstar. And he's also using some rather long words.
I know.
It's interesting in these early episodes watching Youngstar's evolution. I much prefer his later incarnation.
This sister is Callisto, one of the remote moons of Jupiter, over 1 million miles from the giant veiled planet itself.
A science lesson from Zelda. And she's landed near a Terrorhawks base on Callisto.
Leo.
And a bust of Galileo that they put in there.
It's Galileo, Zelda.
The Earthman who discovered this frozen moon.
Who built this place?
The Terrorhawks. The accursed Terrorhawks. They use it to spy on us.
And having just said that Sistar rarely gets to leave Mars, here's an episode in which she's not on Mars. There's just... that's it. Sabotage the Terrorhawks base. Everything stopped working. Even the little bust of Galileo has stopped turning round.
Zelda, if this belongs to the dreaded Terrorhawks, why don't we destroy everything?
Oh, the wigs come down.
How's my sister? This is only one small part of my most devious plan.
This is also a rare sight, I think, of a Terrorhawks installation outside of, well, Hawknest and the regular vehicles, really. I can't remember off the top of my head. I suppose the Overlander depot might count as Terrorhawks base, possibly, but otherwise it seems a rather small organisation compared to something like Shadow.
To them in English.
Anyway, up on Spacehawk.
I think we have a problem.
What is it?
The tracker station on Callisto has gone off the air.
What?
It's a major electronic failure.
Then we do have a problem. A big one.
Exactly.
Oh. There's that word again.
A 1,000,000-mile wide gap in our space surveillance.
Prepare Space Hawk.
Tiger in his casual gear always makes me smile because the head is so big. The arms are so small.
Like a pair of thick socks.
I mean, none of the characters look, the human characters look exactly sort of on point. Actually, Kate looks quite good, but just something about Tiger, off-duty Tiger, casual wear.
Be careful out there.
Just makes me smile. He looks so silly.
I'll bear that in mind too.
But we've now reached the point in production order, thankfully, where we've got a decent-looking Einstein puppet rather than the one from the first few episodes. Very grey hair and very, very thin face. Something about that early Tiger puppet is just very disturbing to me. Anyway, Tiger and Kate are off to Space Hawk in Treehawk. And they've got a couple of Zeroids with them as well.
Kate, Dr. Einstein, welcome aboard. I amputated one of Cymbidium's blooms in your honor.
I like Hero. He's a nice gentle soul.
All right, let's get...
And sometimes in moments like this, I don't think the other Terrorhawks quite understand him, but... oh, here's Zero.
Before you say one word, I don't want another endless argument about who's in command.
Right, I am. End of argument.
Huh.
Space flight? All right.
There he is, 5-5.
Who is that?
That is 5-5.
Introduction of another Zeroid character.
All right. Does he always talk like that?
No, come to think of it, he usually does talk in rhyme.
You're not serious.
Like he's a poet, and he do know it.
Why can't he be normal like the rest of us?
I love that, and I love the whole on the extreme close-up of 101 and Zero's eyes just wobbling around as if they are the absolute benchmark for normal. Yeah, this was in this again sort of transition period for the show before they
it's clear.
Created and really established Deez Wheat as
safety checks on
as Zero's right-hand Zeroid.
Temperature and pressure.
They would have characters like 5-5 or who was the other one? Oh, 2-1, the stuttering Zeroid.
Everything checks out, Doctor.
And they sort of, they were okay in small doses, but they didn't really pan out to any kind of long-term.
Let's go.
Potential. I don't think either of them survive to the second series. They don't get killed, they just disappear.
1050 Treehawk.
10-10.
5-5 was for a while Kate's personal Zeroid.
Thanks, Hero.
Which I always thought was odd because none of the other Terrorhawks ever got any personal Zeroids. Oh no, I suppose 101 is Heroes.
Hero, we're on our way.
Anyway.
First time on active service, eh, lad? Don't worry, nothing to it.
Sergeant, when you smile, I like your style.
And I've said it before, I'll say it again, I do love Windsor Davies. I've recently just finished rewatching A Day in Our Thought Mum, and he is just... oh my goodness, he is so good in that. And I just love that it was... they basically just took that character from that show and made him a robot. Slightly softened his harder edges, but essentially it's the same character. And Windsor, it's just one of my favourite comedy performances of all time. Just Windsor Davies in that show. And he's a real asset to this series as well. Anyway, the Terrorhawks have now arrived in Callisto Base. I love the interior of this docking bay they've landed in. It looks a lot like the Hawkwing launch tunnel as well.
5-5, check out all backup systems. Kate and I will go straight to the control room. Meet us there when you're through.
Yes, sir.
So we're going to find out what's gone wrong on Callisto Base.
There's no component failure.
Oh, they found what's gone wrong on Callisto Base. That was quick.
Before us.
Yeah. How long will it take to repair?
1 hour. 2 at the most.
Strange that Zelda managed to sabotage the entire base just by shooting one...
sense.
To do so little damage?
One instrument.
Right.
Oh, it's part of a plan, isn't it?
Unless someone wants us here.
Zero, where are you?
Corridor 3, sir.
Keep a sharp lookout.
Sir.
And an interesting thing about this episode, and it seems to have been something I've mentioned a few times in recent Randomiser episodes, is that although this is like the 6th or 7th episode filmed, it was, in the UK at least, shown very, very late in the broadcast run. I think this was shown as part of the 3rd series in the UK on television, even though
made those
clips from it had already appeared in...
but it ain't no kangaroo.
Oh, I hate that line. Clips of this episode had already appeared in Mars Monsters, the flashback episode which ended Series 2, which is rather unfortunate that they would remember an episode that as yet they hadn't actually experienced.
Whatever made these has to be 7 feet tall.
Nearer 9.
Oh, okay then.
It is? Zero, continue the search, but report before you take any action.
Something she doesn't want to talk about in front of the Zeroids.
I think it's a spirilla.
Flaming thunderbolts.
They're utterly ferocious, incredibly strong, and virtually indestructible.
Why didn't you want to talk about this in front of Zero?
One of their favorite items of diet happens to be small metallic objects.
So that's quite callous on Kate's part to just keep quiet and send the Zeroids out into danger. I know Zero would go without a second thought, but this is quite a scary first mission for 5-5.
I'll take the right section. You go left.
10-10.
Are you all right, 5-5?
This is 5-5, and I'm alive.
Oh, not for long by the sound of it.
At the double.
Nah, he's all right. The Zeroids are heading back towards each other and smack into each other.
Watch where you're going, lad. Come on, move.
I adore the Zeroids as well. It's such a clever idea for a robot. I think everyone must love the Zeroids. If you love Terrorhawks, you love the Zeroids, I think, automatically. Oh, that's not good.
Inside the docking bay, sir. The mechanism that opens the exit port has been destroyed. Ripped to pieces. Treehawk won't be able to lift off. We're trapped.
Get back here, Zero.
Yes, sir.
We can repair it.
If we had a week, but our air supply won't last 24 hours.
24 hours?
Yeah, maybe less.
Be quiet.
That's odd. Almost a purring noise from Youngstar there.
You hear that, devoted ones? The wretched Einstein admits he is doomed.
And by your genius, Mother, we hear and enjoy every pathetic word he uttered.
Wonderful!
Oh, that was almost a wig about to come down over the eyes moment, but it didn't quite make it. Is it going to make it now? No, it didn't make it.
Whoever did that must have a pair of jaws on him like a car crusher.
Oh, 5-5's seen it. The Zero props are really good at looking scared as well, with the eyes wiggling backwards and forwards. Anyway, 0 and 5-5 have found the Spirilla.
Report, Zero.
Or the Spirilla's found them, I should say.
Engaging the enemy, sir.
Where are you?
Corridor 1. It's like fighting peas at a brick wall.
Retreat.
But, sir.
Get out of there, Zero.
Yes, sir. Tactical withdrawal, 5-5.
Do we stroll or do we row?
What we do, lad, is stroll on.
And not having grown up with this show, I didn't discover it until like mid-teens, really. I'm not sure which of the regular Terrorhawks monsters would be the scariest, but the Spirilla is a name I see come up quite a bit. Which is surprising considering he's basically only in 2 episodes, really. It's this and Space Giant. Tiger has hallucinations of one in Mind Monster, and you get the flashback to this episode in Mars Monsters. I think that might be it, except for the really obvious one that I'm missing, which I can't remember off the top of my head.
Everything! Now to twist the knife.
Einstein. I know you hear me.
Oh, so close to a Voice of the Mysterons moment.
You are about to encounter the frightening Sporilla. I could have ordered the monster to kill you the moment you landed, but I prefer to arrange a more spectacular...
Einstein's figured out where the Zelda's voice is coming from.
Time to reflect and to suffer.
I don't know how he realised it was in the bust of Galileo, but...
When the end is near, to beg for mercy.
Yep, there it is. Smash the bust.
I see you have found my device. It will not help you.
Nice talking to you, Zelda. You had to gloat. Twist the knife.
Einstein is still doing...
And in later episodes, again, Youngstar wouldn't say that to his mother. Or at least if he did, he'd get an immediate crack over the nose with a stick.
I could have ordered the monster to kill you the moment you landed.
She controlled the Sporilla.
With that device.
Took a shot. And here he is. Here's the Sporilla.
Open fire.
And I like how much this feels like a lost cause. They're just holed up in this one room. And the monster has finally made it in, and yet...
He means the device.
Yes.
Give
I think he's trying to thank us for giving him his freedom.
It is a nice surprise as well when you discover this thing can talk.
He's not gonna harm us.
With, I believe, the voice of Windsor Davies, in fact.
Yes. You go.
We can't. We're trapped.
Me help.
And as with many of the Terrorhawk's monster puppets, the Sporilla is quite a nice design. I especially like looking at this in HD, the way the fangs on his jaw sort of interlock. It's quite gruesome.
But you're going to have to increase your mass and use your head.
Use my head. You can rely on me.
Oh. Zero's been tricked. I love how Zero can be exploited just by how loyal and brave he is.
Use my head. Very funny. Has to roll on hard.
Which in this case, Tiger's plan involves having the Sporilla just keep throwing Zero against the stuck doors to the launch bay in an attempt to get them open.
What do Sporillas and Zeroids have in common?
Well...
Apart from the fact that neither needs an atmosphere, both are immune to extremes of temperature, and neither is affected by pressure.
Very little. Except they both have pretty hard heads.
Yeah, I really like the look of the Cape Puppet, actually. There's, I don't think there's a single shot in the series where the Cape Puppet doesn't look the best of the human regular characters.
That you, Zero?
Although sometimes their choice of fashion and wigs is a bit questionable.
Port side, sir.
Hold on tight.
10-10, sir.
That's it, Zero's got the door open, he's attached to Treehawk. He's getting out of there.
Thank you.
That's a rather nice way to end the episode. They freed the Sporilla from Zelda's control. I don't know what there is on Callisto for him to really do.
Huge legs and shoulders.
Aside from maybe to look after the Terrorhawk's base for them, but
Rilla sounds most...
I suppose anything is better than living under Zelda's control. And I suppose it also raises the question of just how
he used his...
if there are any more monsters in her cryogenic store who aren't there, who aren't working for her by choice. Because the Sporilla was definitely under her control there, and after that control was destroyed, he was not working for her anymore.
I kept my head. That's it. I kept my head. Only just mine.
I love that laugh. That is such a cool laugh. Anyway, that was the Spirilla. And I think that's one of the stronger early episodes of Terrorhawks, really. It's not quite there yet, but you can feel things are starting to come together a bit more. That most of the scenes on Callisto Base, that's a fairly nice sequence of investigation and discovery of the Spirilla. I suppose it's slightly hampered by the fact that we see the Spirilla early on in the episode, and then later his reveal is played as if it's a big shock. It might have been more effective if we hadn't seen the Spirilla on Mars. But no, I would say that's probably in production order, this was probably the best episode of the show so far. It's a good example of the show's transitionary period from the very straight early episodes into the slightly sillier stuff later on, and yeah, some nice Zeroid action with the Sergeant Major and good old 5-5.
Ooh, a bit of Terrorhawks.
Bit of Terrorhawks. Lovely boy.
Well, yes, a bit of Windsor Davis. Now, of course, Windsor Davis didn't just play Sergeant Major Zero and the Doctor, but he also played the Spirilla itself.
Oh, okay.
Now, when we were doing some archive stuff for Terrorhawks, when we were putting the Blu-rays together, we found an old tape, and on that tape was some of the raw dialogue record from Terrorhawks. And at the end was some of Windsor Davis doing the Spirilla.
Right.
Would you like a quick blast?
Yeah, let's hear that.
All Spirilla sounds on episode Spirilla. Page 24, scene 55.
The multi-talented
amazing.
Davis. Now, that's not actually from that episode. I think it was from Space Giant, which was later, but it's still the Spirilla.
Yeah.
And it felt like a good time to crack those out, but yeah.
Oh, that was fun. Lovely. And do you know what? Listening to that sound, that strange sound that he makes, you can almost see the facial expression that he had to pull.
Oh, totally.
To make that sound, can't you?
I feel like he probably went a bit purple while he was doing those sounds.
Yes, yeah. Oh, that's brilliant. What a pro. Love that. What a treat. That was great. Thank you, Jamie.
Gosh, so we begin with a chicken doing Stingray and end with Windsor Davis doing the Spirilla.
Yeah.
I mean,
you couldn't ask for more.
We've literally encompassed every part of the Gerry Anderson universe and the Animal Kingdom, both fictional and non-fictional, in this podcast.
I think you're right. That's great.
Right, well, as you said, we've peaked. There's nothing else we can bring to this one, is there?
No, not till next week, no. Exactly. We'll think of something else for them.
Yeah, well,
come on. Yeah.
Okay, well, while we're thinking of what to do for Pod 115, Podsterons, please send any questions or thoughts or comments into us at podcast@gerryanderson.co.uk. Make sure you leave us a lovely rating or a review. In fact, Richard, shall I just pop into Apple Podcasts and read a review that somebody's left us recently?
Yes, if you see one from Richard N. James, just ignore that, though. You don't need to read that.
Yeah, from your namesake, is it?
Yeah, so just ignore that and find another one.
I've got one here from last week.
Oh, yeah.
From Son of Virgil.
Right.
Interesting. A bit salacious new detail there. I didn't know Virgil had any children. Son of Virgil.
That was the news.
I think it's a bit more Trisha or Jerry Springer than that, this sort of thing. But,
yes, I think you're right.
Son of Virgil says, if you're a fan of Thunderbird, Stingray, Space 1999 and all things Gerry Anderson, and who isn't, then this is a must-listen-to podcast. Full of facts, backstories and interviews, all about the many TV shows and movies that Gerry Anderson made over many years. I mean, that's our tagline, really, isn't it?
Yeah,
so,
absolutely right.
Thank you, Son of Virgil.
In a nutshell.
If you'd like to be read out on a future podcast, and the best way to do that is to actually leave us a review. So please go and do that immediately. And we'll look forward to reading that next week, won't we, Richard?
Yep, definitely.
Are we done?
I think so.
Good. Right, that's the end of Pod 114 of the Gerry Anderson podcast. I've been Jamie Anderson.
And I've been Richard James.
And he's been Chris Dale over there, and we're done. Goodbye.
Bye.
Stage 1 complete.
Let's go.
Spectrum is green.
I think we should cut out that sound.
Yeah,
and have it when we say something exciting or interesting, and just have Windsor Spirilla reaction. So,
I like that.
When you say, this week we've got 2 chapters of Space Precinct Unmasked narrated by Richard James. Oh, see, it'll be great. So there you go.
Oh, you're right. I have got a bit purple. That's strange, isn't it? Do you know, I'd never seen that vein on my forehead before.
You need to go and get some fresh air, Richard. Maybe lie down.
I think you're right.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah,
In fact, after that episode with all that excitement, I think I do too. So
quite right.
Let's go and lie down separately, and I'll see you next week.
See you next week.
Bye.
Bye.
You have been listening to the Gerry Anderson Podcast. Wasn't it fun?
You have been listening to an Anderson Entertainment production.